Season 6 of the Missing Witches podcast is sponsored in part by Foxglove Farm. Go to Foxglove Farm, that's farm with a PH, like pharmacy.com, and use offer code MISSINGWITCHES when you sign up for your monthly subscription box of witchy delights. And sponsored by listeners like you. You who join our Patreon and come to our coven meetings. You who buy our book. Recommend it to your friends and review it online. We thank you. And if you love this episode, tip us at paypal.me/missingwitches.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch.
Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch.
You must be a witch.
Tomorrow, September 30th, is Orange Shirt Day. So I wanted to tell you a tiny bit about that history. The inspiration for Orange Shirt Day came from residential school survivor Phyllis Jack Webstad, who shared her story at a St. Joseph Mission residential school commemoration project and reunion event held in British Columbia. Phyllis recounted her first day of residential schooling at 6 years old, when she was stripped of her clothes, including the new orange shirt her grandmother bought her, which was never returned. The orange shirt now symbolizes how the residential school system took away the Indigenous identities of its students. Of course, we understand now that the residential school system took from these Indigenous children a lot more than their identities. And in many cases, too many cases, it was not just their clothing that was stripped of them, but their lives. On this day and every other, we ask our coven to consider how we can make reparations from our own personal lives for the future of us all. Welcome back to the Missing Witches podcast, and welcome back also to our good friend Granddaughter Crow. You listeners may remember her from our panel discussion, What is a Shaman? And because, Granddaughter Crow, you were such a part of such a kind of a large panel for us, we didn't really get as much into you and yourself and your book, which I'm holding in my hands right now, The Wisdom of the Natural World. I'm loving it. Your history, your activism. So I wanted to invite you back to the show to talk about all of that. And I know you want to grace our listeners with something before we officially begin. So please. I hand it to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So welcome to listening to this podcast. Welcome to this space and this time, wherever you are. May I set my ego aside. I'm going to draw a circle around this space and time. I'm going to set my ego to the outside of that circle so I can be a clear conduit to bring to you what is most beneficial to you. And as the divine reveals itself to you, may you enjoy and receive what it is that you are looking for at this moment.
Thank you. And thank you. Let us all set our egos outside of this circle. That was wonderful. I have a lot of questions about circles for you, which I was thinking about saving for later, but now let's begin.
Sure.
I mean, there's so much about circles in your book, What's Again, The Wisdom of the Natural World, in many different forms. There's the medicine wheel and also the listening circle. Now, when I saw the sort of subheading of listening circle, it was not what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
Right. We
Right.
have a concept of the listening circle being this, like where we sit in respect and acknowledgement of other people and their stories. But your version of the listening circle is so useful and different than that. But I feel like they could go very much hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And they must, in a way. So can you tell our listeners about your version of a listening circle?
Absolutely. I'd be honored to. So I made it up. I didn't.
And we love that around these parts. Yeah.
Absolutely. It just came to me. So if you could visualize that you have a circle, and then you have another circle surrounding that circle, which is a little bit larger. And then you have another circle surrounding that circle, which is even larger. And In the center circle, that is the people who, if you hear from them, you take action. And so that's like, make sure that you are in your center of your circle. I want you to, if you are hungry, if you are tired, if you need something, if you want something, if you, whatever it is, take action on what your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit is looking to do. Secondly, so then you have, if somebody calls you and says, oh, I need you, you immediately drop what you're doing, you dismiss yourself, you call in sick or whatever, and you take action. There should be just a few people in this circle. The most essential, if you have everybody in this circle, you will just spread yourself way too thin. So then if you look at the second circle that's surrounding this circle, and you put other people in this one, this is the circle that when you hear from them, when you listen to them, you say a prayer for them, you light a candle, but it's not really action oriented. You don't drop everything that you need to do. You're like, oh man, that's really hard. I'll hold you up in prayer, or yay and you kind of conduct your life in figuring out who is in what circle. And then the final large circle that encompasses all of these is basically like when you hear the news, something that is almost indirect but affects, and you hear it. And you can take action on those things maybe in the future, but it doesn't mean that you drop everything that you're doing. And then you kind of figure out, maybe you make a group and you address different issues and problems. But it's kind of like giving yourself, who is in my inner circle, who is in the second circle, who is in the third circle. And if nothing else, put yourself in that middle circle, and maybe your children or your cat. But that's kind of a way to navigate through the world when you have such a huge empathic heart that wants to act and react to everything that's going on in the world. It's like, let's take a moment and give them tears, and then not tears like outside of your eye, but like a tear, like T-I-E-R. And so that it kind of helps you to navigate when you have such a big heart and when you listen a lot.
Yeah, and when I was reading it, your explanation was sort of focused on one's personal life, your closest friends, and then the people, further and further out of that core circle. But definitely, in 2021, empathetic people, like you say, sensitive people, we can apply this to our activism as well, I think.
Yes.
Like you say, when you look out into the world, and there are people suffering in literally every direction you look, even in the mirror, oftentimes.
Yes.
And so I think it's okay. You want to help everyone, obviously, but I think it's okay to have, like, maybe your innermost circle is, not just even the environment, but like specifically, one place. And then, your second circle is maybe reproductive rights and so on and so on. And it is okay to say, I'm going to focus on this.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it makes us more efficient and effective. And I want to do everything that I can to help marginalized groups, to help, bring the ancestors' stories, keep them alive, and through storytelling and direct support, and for the purpose of truth, meaning that it was once said that history is written by the victor. And more often than not, the victor is not the marginalized group. And so if we can tell the stories of said marginalized groups, we keep our history more true, and we keep it honest, and we keep it alive, and we learn from it, and we grow from it, and we all kind of come together and realize that as many differences as we have, there's more similarities. There are more similarities than there are differences. So,
can you share with our listeners a bit of your personal history in making that real and true for us?
Absolutely. I think that one could if there was a book that says the life of Granddaughter Crow, it would say keeping the ancestors' voice alive. So my history is that I'm living in North Glen, Colorado. It's right outside of Denver, and I've been living here for 25 years. I love my home and my husband and my cat. But where I came from, my father is full-blood Navajo Indian from the Navajo Nations, which is positioned in what we call the Four Corners region, which is Colorado, Utah, Phoenix or Arizona, and New Mexico. And my clan comes from the New Mexico side, on the upper corner of that. And so my father was born on the res, and then he went to seminary school where he met my mother, and she is full-blood Dutch, right? So cowboys and Indians all up in here, and my mother is Dutch, like she has the lightest skin that you would ever see, can't go out in the sun, blonde hair, hazel eyes. And my father is full Navajo, like English is his second language. And so they met in seminary school, and they became missionaries to go back down to the Navajo Nation. And what they ended up doing was bringing more of a Christianized thought process, which I'm not going to speak of whether I agree or disagree. I believe that the divine is big enough to speak to us in different forms depending on where we are. So basically, I come from a place, I'll say this, I was Native before being Native was cool. That's how I like to decide. I was Native American before being Native American was cool. Now people love that, oh, Granddaughter Crow, you're Native American. My grandmother is part Cherokee. I can't tell you how many times I hear that. And maybe all of their grandmothers are part Cherokee. That's my little inside joke. In fact, it was funny because I went to a powwow and there was this shirt that said, my grandmother is part English, I just can't prove it. It's like, that's what a Native would kind of, So nevertheless, when I look at my story, I need to back up before my life here in the third dimension came. My father, he was born in like 1932, somewhere in there. This was around the time where the people, I'll just say the people, some people that were not, what I'll call them is Bilagana, the ones that are white skin, came in and took my father when he was 8 or 9 years old from the Hogan, which is a traditional Navajo dwelling, him and his sisters and brother, and took him to boarding school, which to them, in a weird way, I think these Bilagana had this idea that they're helping. And that's really scary. And I have to look at that because I'm Dutch, right? And a lot of these boarding schools down here on the Navajo res were run by the Dutch people. And so he was taken, his hair was cut, he was denied his language, AKA heritage, identity. He was told to speak English. So my father learned how to speak English, but he didn't understand it. He understood the words and he understood how to read the words, but he didn't understand how to think like that. And then one day he figured out how to think English and how to think as an English speaker, which the thought process is very, very different. I think I talk about that in the book. If not, it'll be, you'll hear me talk about it. You can check out my YouTube channel. You'll figure out what I'm talking about. That either you think in the language that you speak, and because that's your structure, right? So nevertheless, he was taken, and you like to say, oh, boarding school. Well, that sounds like very structured place. In actuality, it's more like boot camp. It's more like boot camp, to the degree that in my father's generation, after you graduate from said boot camp, you join the army. And when you join, or the military, that's what you do. And if you are only 17, you are told, say that you're 18. And when they say, my father's original name is not spoken, they gave him a name when he was 8 or 9 years old, and when he joined the army, he changed it. So he was first Jefferson, and then he changed it to Jackson because he liked that name. So this is how removed, the English-speaking and thinking society was from the First Nation, the Navajo Nation. And so it became that when he went to the army, it was easy, breeze. Boot camp was a breeze because he's been doing that since he was 9 years old, standing out there in the middle of the desert, not drinking water, making your bed, just saying yes sir, okay. And the hard part about this that I've never heard anybody talk about, but I see it, is that you have these little natives, and everybody who is white, because the white kids didn't go to this school. Everybody who is in a position of authority is an adult white person. And that wreaks havoc on the First Nations childlike psyche. Feeling oppression, feeling that the older white people know more, know things that you don't know. That stays within my father still to this day. He will ask and defer to my mom because she is white. And in that, so that's a point that I wanted to make. And in that, there is more pain that we need to rewrite this story. So now what I do is I tell these stories and I keep my ancestors alive, hence the name Granddaughter Crow, because it was my grandfather on my dad's side who danced with the crows and the ravens, medicine man. He is the one that gave me his spirit of the crow and of the raven. And I am here to keep those stories alive, not just with the First Nations, not just with the Indigenous, although that's the closest to my personal story, but within all marginalized groups, to start having these conversations.
Yes, and your desire to keep these stories. I thought I was muted for a second and I got scared that I'd forgotten to unmute myself.
We can hear you loud.
It's not just the human stories that interest you, which is kind of a great segue into your book, The Wisdom of the Natural World. I mean, you talk about plants, animals, landscapes,
Yes.
even having their own stories. So this is one of my favorite, it's not even a whole line, it's like 4 words or something. Being able to translate the land's energy into a story. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So I'm not sure what the book said. I'll just be blunt, but I will tell you what I hear today, post-book. Being able to translate the landscape into a story. So there is a wonderful book called Spell of the Sensuous. And in that book, it talks about Aboriginal people in Australia, and that as they walk along the land, as they walk along the outback, I suppose, they will tell a story. And the story is continued to be told. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that sounds like my dad. When we walk around on the res, he tells me the same story every time. When I was little, it was really like, I know already. But it was in that tradition. And so I have a lot of thoughts and theories around this, but what I'll say is that the land holds a story. And the oral culture, such as the Navajo culture, continues to pass that history down, explaining what the land is about, explaining what took place in that to make those sacred mountains, to make that river the center of life, blood flow within the res. to, in the Navajo way, we have, the 4 sacred mountains that surround us, and there's stories behind this, that these stories are somewhat like parables. They start turning into parables because they have a meaning to show how to walk in this world. Another thing that I find fascinating is that when I look at my father's face, it is red, it is rugged, it is beautiful. When I look at a mountain down on the red rocks, I see my father's face. I wonder if we are staying in a place long enough, does our body start becoming the land? I look at people from Hawaii. They are so plush and circular and youthful. And I look at the coconuts and I look at the water and I'm like, wow, you guys look like the land. So I come up with all sorts of these things,
Yeah, I mean, you got me thinking like Scandinavians are like icy blue and
Yes.
like glaciers, like, and that's the thing about those of us who live in North America who are not Indigenous, is that we are perhaps unable to recognize connections like that because we don't have them. Because we haven't been here long enough for our features to be reflected or to reflect the landscape.
Right. I absolutely can see where you're coming from, but that's where I think the wisdom of the natural world comes into play, because it helps you to identify your personality with that of a plant, helps you to identify your personality with that of an animal, helps you to identify your work environment with a landscape. Are you working in a place that you have to climb these mountains? Are you working in a place that it's so dry as a desert? Are you working in this luscious place that everything they touch grows? And not only that, it helps you to look at the world around you through those lenses about animals. Like if you were in a group of people and you behave like I would a crow, and so I talk a lot and I get mystical. And then maybe somebody else has a cat totem. So I make sure that I stay high enough that cat doesn't eat me. But there is a relationship there, and you honor and respect the cat, and then there's a spider person over here. Well, crows eat spiders. So it's like, be careful with that relationship and honor them, so it is with all of us that we see, the wisdom of the natural world. The subtitle is spiritual and practical lessons and teachings from plants, animals, and Mother Earth. And so even if you are Scandinavian and you live in New York and you say, oh, I'm so far away from myself, the wisdom of the natural world will say, oh, you silly goose, you are the natural world. You are the natural world. You are an aspect of this organic natural world. But I think that there has been such a religious input that says that we are above animals and plants that has destroyed that within our human psyche. And what I say is that if you go back far enough in any and all of our backgrounds, our DNA, you go back far enough, we all sat in circle around a fire and told stories. So we are all tribe.
Yeah, the religiosity of hierarchy, something that I think a lot about when I'm considering my own personal notion of deities and what a deity might mean in terms of there being like a spiritual hierarchy. And I remember my stepdad responded to my, burgeoning vegetarianism many years ago by saying, like, the Bible says that man has dominion over the plants and the animals. So therefore, God is telling us to, destroy them, or that they're solely meant for our consumption, that this God, this Christian God, created everything solely for us to consume. And so
Yes.
it's easy to draw a very straight line between that idea and then where we're at now with the
Yeah.
destruction of our species' ability to live on the planet. I won't say destruction of the planet because
Right, because we'll be
will go
destroyed
on.
before the planet will. I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah, we will be gone long before our floating rock that we inhabit will be gone. I mean, we know this. We know from science that there have been ice ages and,
Yes.
various changes of the globe that
Yes.
we inhabit. And the only
Yes.
thing that we are concretely destroying is our ability to live here.
Yeah.
And once again, when you connect that to this, and all of these things that we're talking about, the residential school system, there's no question in my mind that these people, these bad, evil people who created and did this, thought somehow, based on this weird
Yes.
Bible of that they were
Yep.
doing the right thing. And I
Yep.
think that that's the same today as it was then, that there's nobody out there who thinks I'm evil, like we see a cartoon or something where the bad
Right.
guy's like, I'm here to save the world.
Yep.
I'm going to bomb this abortion clinic because I need
Yep.
to save the world from this person who's evil. And like you said before, like that's the really scary part,
Yes.
I think,
Yes, it is. It is. And which kind of brings me to briefly speak about my next book that will be coming out in June 2022. And that is, I forgot the whole title, but basically it's called Belief, Being, and Beyond. And then, Belief, Being, and Beyond. And this book is about examining your belief system, because your belief system constitutes how you behave in the world, and that maybe there's something beyond that. And that we all have blind spots. I was raised by a reverend of the Christian faith. I was a good little Christian girl trying to save the world, stopping people on the street saying God loves you. I mean, I was that person, right? Until I got to be about 15 years old. And I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. How come it talks about unconditional love, yet we're judging everybody else, and that some people on the planet aren't going to understand the Christian God, and then they automatically go to hell? How is that a love? And unfortunately, that's what ousted me from my Christian believing family. But I think that it is worth examining. And so in this book, the little title underneath it says something like how to critically think about ideas, how to deconstruct old things that aren't working, old belief systems, how to heal from harmful belief systems. And I think that it is so ingrained within North America, this Christianized thinking, that we don't even see it anymore. But the harm, and I know that here's another story about my dad. My dad says, when I was a little boy, the Belagana woman told me, oh, there's these people, they're savages. They run around naked. They are like animals, and they're mean, and they will kill you, and they are called Indians. And my dad went out onto the playground and was with his little buddy and said, I am scared of these Indians. And my dad's friend said, oh, she said that we're Indians. And he goes, I'm not Indian, I'm Navajo.
It's like the whole other side of the world. What's she talking?
Yeah. So that kind of thinking about, I am not going to listen to you and listen to what it is that you are asking me for. If you're asking me for anything at all, I am not going to force my belief system onto you. And please do not force your belief system onto me. So I try to write these books so that we can start exploring that we all have blind spots, me included. It is not foolish to have a blind spot. What is foolish is to think that you don't.
Mm. Or to perpetrate a willfully blind spot, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
I'm just not going to listen to anything about any of that. Willful blind spots are different than ones
Right.
that just happen, right?
Right, right. And I do want to say that, these things that are going on of the residential schools up in Canada, I want to applaud you because I think that that needs to trickle down to the North America, because we will find that that happened all over North America.
Yeah.
And this was, quite frankly, right around, 1940s, right around there. But if you look back far enough, the First Nations, if you look back into 1860, 1865, the Long Walk of the Navajo, the Trail of Tears, I'm sure that there are everybody's version of First Nation where somebody who came in to take over the land in a very Christianized thought process tried to eliminate and erase us because of some superiority, because they looked at us as though we were animals. And animals not meaning, yay, I'm an animal. I love that aspect. I'm like, hells yeah, I'm a crow,
Mhm.
But moreover, that animals are below.
Yeah.
That they do not have feelings, they do not have thoughts, they do not have personalities. That breaks my heart.
Yes. Yeah. And especially considering, we think about this notion of what life was if we were raised in Christian households. Let me preface by saying, this notion of the Garden of Eden and the beautiful nudity and shamelessness that existed before, the snake and the eating of the apple and all that. And then for these Christian people to use that exact same scenario, looking at these people who, by our accounts of Genesis, are the people of Eden, living in...
Oh, very wonderful point.
Living in their shameless nudity. And for some reason, the mental gymnastics involved.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But again, so normal. Yes. So crazy to us, but so normal.
And I believe that the reason that is because we forgot, we were told not to ask questions. Do not question your authority. Do not question God. Do not question anything. You blindly follow whatever the hell I tell you, because I do too. So now we turn into sheeple, and we were raised in households that told us crazy things. And of course, we aren't supposed to question it, because if you question God, or at least a Christianized God, that's considered a sin. But I will not worship a God that I am not allowed, a God or a goddess that I am not allowed to ask them questions. The ones that I work with solicit questions. And personally, my deity is Mother Earth.
Yes, and you have a very intricate and yet super simple messaging system with this deity. Can you tell us about how you communicate with the earth and the wisdom of the natural world? And part two, how listeners for whom this concept is unthinkable, or at least they wouldn't even know where to start. So how did you do it? And then how would you suggest someone who is just beginning to learn this language start?
Sure. Start the dialogue with the natural world. Well, after I say what I'm about ready to say, you guys will realize that you already are dialoguing with the natural world. And this is what I'll say. I took a communications class in my undergrad where I learned that, I think it's 7% of communication is actually words, which means that 93% is body language, tone, facial structure, pitch, how fast you say something, how low you say something, how loud you say something. Like if I were to yell, I love you, you don't know if I'm mad about that. You probably, you're like, I like that you say I love you, but why did you have to yell it, So in that, realizing that what we are, how we communicate with each other is 93% facial structure, tone, pitch, body language, and that we only really communicate 7%, then we will stop trying to make the tree speak our language. And we will see, oh, the tree says, what does the tree say to you? It says to me, I'm strong. I have been here longer than you have. I have seen so many things, so many winters. I have experienced the harsh winds blow, and it made me stronger. So stand tall, and maybe you will get criticized, the harsh winds, but let it make you stronger. Endure the winters, for spring is bound to come. So that's kind of in short how I do it. Is I let it, I look at it and I take away the language that I speak, and I let it speak to me through its body language. And then if you want to, these are really fun things. You can go out and you can just go sit in an open space or a park or in your own backyard and just breathe, and then close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and then open your eyes and look around. What catches your eye? And whatever catches your eye, just look at it. Watch how it's behaving in the world, and look at its characteristics. You could bring your journal and you could say, these are the characteristics of whatever it is that caught your eye in the natural world. This is how it's moving within the world. And then go, okay. So then let's take it a step further. Let's go, oh, I'm confused in my relationships, in my romance house. I'm confused in my work and my career and my finances. Oh, I'm confused in my health. These are the top 3 things that people tend to get confused in. So take that, okay, natural world, I am going to move into you, and then you are going to move through me. And my question is, explain to me what's going on in my career. And then you just kind of take a walk with your journal. You will see the natural world will emulate what's going on. What is the environment? It starts talking to you. It starts talking to you. And most people would be like, you could say, oh yeah, your work is like the desert. Nothing grows. Oh yeah, that's exactly how I feel. But I've got so much to offer. Oh yeah, that's because, you need to change the environment so that you can plant your seeds in the conducive environment that will allow your talents, your inspiration, your authenticity to grow. But let me tell you, if you are a lizard or you are a snake, you may be drawn to those dry environments. So nothing is right or wrong. We're the ones who put these good and evil things on there. The natural world, it rebalances itself, and it's not all pretty either. And neither is our life. So the natural world will be able to say, yeah, you are in a hurricane. But look at how we get through hurricanes. Look at what happens, It's honest.
Yeah. One of the most incredible messages that I've begun to receive, I've been living in the woods for just a few years now, so I focus on, listening and paying attention. The absorption side of communication, not so much delivering messages to this place. But one of the most beautiful things that I'm only just beginning to fully recognize even is the taking turns, the working together. Like nature is under capitalism, it's like everything all at once, and there are billboards everywhere and everything wants your attention. But in my little patch here, the dandelions come up first, And then
Yes.
the dandelions kind of, pass, and then other wildflowers, and then different colors, and then the last things of the growing season are always, the asters and the goldenrod. But you don't see asters and goldenrod until like August.
Exactly.
Like everyone is sort of patiently taking their turn and doing their contribution, and it makes sure that the pollinators have somebody to hit up, for
Oh
6
yeah.
months of the year here, because our winters are very long and very cold, and once again there's also a beauty in that I didn't
Yes.
recognize when I was living in the city. When I lived in the city, I hated winter because it was just the same but cold.
Yeah.
Out here it's completely different. It's calming. It's not treacherous.
Yeah. It's sleepy time. It's
Right.
hibernation time. It's when, you know, the life cycle of a tree is one of our, well, okay, so I want to say this without sounding too confusing. A tree's day is our year.
Mhm.
A tree wakes up in the springtime, stretches in the summertime, oh, and then gently falls to sleep in the August, September, whatever, wherever you were at in the autumn, and then it sleeps during the night.
Oh, you missed a crucial step though,
Oh,
Granddaughter
what is,
Crow.
yeah,
Before it goes to sleep, it releases what it doesn't need and what's
it let,
unserving.
oh my God, that is so beautiful because the trees, we suffer in this cold, cruel world because it says, just let go. And you're like, no, I gotta hold on. It's for my life. If you want to learn how to let go talk to a tree in the autumn. It releases its little leaves that dance in the sun and happily go about its way. Just like releasing a thought or an idea, so it's that a day. Or you could even say that a tree, its one breath is our year, where it wakes up and it inhales, and then all of a sudden it holds its breath for a moment, and then in the autumn it exhales and it goes to sleep. So when you look at those patterns, talking about circles, those are the circles. And so, we in our thinking, we need to create these calendars, and sometimes they work, but every 4 years we need to add a day. And just look at the natural world. It has its own life cycle, its own beingness. And I love that you say that it takes turns. Absolutely, because that is the organism that we could learn from. What if we were to take turns? Yeah.
You reminded me of the very first line of your book, which is Michael Smith. Michael Smith wrote the foreword to your book, and like I say, it's the very first line in the book, and you read it and you're like, this is going to be good. Michael Smith, props to him, wrote, "Breathe in, now breathe out. You have just experienced a complete cycle of life. You have experienced, in that simple moment, a microcosm of the entire universe."
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
And I think, for those of our listeners who are having trouble with this like natural world connection, I think is like you say, like, go somewhere and breathe.
Yeah. Go
It's a
somewhere
great first step.
and breathe. And another thing is that if you want to develop more of your relationship with the natural world, go out in the morning, sit under a tree and breathe and look around. Notice the way that the shadow is cast. Notice what birds and squirrels fly in and out of it. And then make your notes and go back inside. And then come out at noon and compare and contrast. Go back inside, do your little thing or whatever. And you come back outside in the evening. Notice it's in the same spot. Notice how it changed. Right? Take your notes about the characteristics and the attributes and what's going on, because wow, there were so many birds in the morning. Where did they all go in the evening? And then Set your alarm, wake up at midnight and go sit under that tree. Yeah. Do that a few times. You'll start connecting with, oh, wow, I thought it was just a tree, but now I understand. Everything changes in the cycle of one day. And of course, you could do that same thing every day for a year and a day. You know, that's just witchy fun, right?
Yes.
That's just a whole lot of witchy fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, you know, when I stare at my trees, sometimes I get super excited about the idea that what I'm observing, an almost mirror of that,
Yes.
a negative mirror in the sense of, you know, black and white, is happening underground. And
Yes.
the root systems are spreading like limbs, like in the same way that the limbs spread above ground. There's
Yes.
a whole other universe happening that I never get to see. And again, that to me is such an amazing metaphor for our
Yes.
personal lives. You know, there is what we see, and then there's the unseen. And our contemporary thinking, the unseen doesn't exist, or it's not real, or, you know, what if we can't see it, it's not real, then how do you explain dirt and roots, you know,
Right.
and worms and you know, mushrooms and all the millions and billions of things that are going on underneath us, the amazing architecture of ants,
Yes.
the way ants design their colonies, it's like
Crazy.
and again, like we were saying, like ants are individuals, but they operate as a unit.
Yeah. A complete organism. In fact, I heard, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it's a really cool story, so we'll pretend for a second that it is true. I heard that groundhogs are able to build underground something that we can learn that of a system that cools itself down like an AC unit by the way that they build it. You know, like this is up here, heat rises, I got to build a lower hole to draw in some of the cooler air, you know. So, I mean, it's phenomenal what you can learn from the natural world. It is absolutely phenomenal. And I think that, you know, I have another book out. It's called The Journey of the Soul, The Path of a Medicine Person. And all of these you can get up on Amazon Kindle, or you know, just request it from your local bookstore. They can order it straight from Llewellyn. But that book was kind of like, we earn the medicine that we carry, we earn the wisdom that we have, and we earn this through life's dark night of the soul. Those initiations are what causes us to be strong, just like the harsh winds caused the tree to be strong. Do not hide from these shadows. Do not hide from these stories that you wish you didn't have to think about. Mind them. Go to a therapist. Call Granddaughter Crow. Call a friend. Figure out what about that story made you stronger. What do you now understand that you did not understand? And carry that wisdom with you. And you don't have to walk around telling your story. I believe that once you mine that jewel, it is carried within your energetic field, and people will come up to you and they're like, I don't know, I can't talk to anybody about this, but I feel it like you would understand. You don't have to tell them why you'd understand, but you can go, yeah. You become a medicine person in your own regard, you know? And medicine people are in all cultures, okay? They're in all cultures. There is a healer, whatever you want to call it, in all cultures. So do not, just because your skin may be lighter than mine, doesn't mean that you can't be a medicine person. To me.
Especially in regards to your own health, your own.
Absolutely.
Yes. You don't need to start going and telling everybody how to, you know, let's start with where, so I like to say I start with the man in the mirror, and then I go from there, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, that brings me to another point. Just because you notice something in somebody else's life doesn't necessarily give you the right to tell them what you think. Always wait for people to ask you. If they ask your opinion, give it to them. But otherwise, let them learn their lessons. Let them live their story. Let their internal narrative come out. We are not here to save each other. We are not here to save each other. I don't think anybody needs to be saved. I think we all go through hard times and we could use a friend, you know, but that's a Christianized thinking that oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this huge company and then I'm going to make it green, or I'm going to donate, or I'm going to have a matching gifts, which basically I just want this company because I want the power and control, the money, but I will cloak it in this, oh yeah, well, I have a matching gifts program, or I did this for you. That's a Christianized cloak to me.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, you just make me think of like the absurdity of, if you can imagine like a dandelion telling a goldenrod, like, you need to show up sooner. I come out in like April, May. I come out in May, and we're like both yellow and we're both flowers. So I don't understand why you're waiting till August. Obviously, May is the time that yellow flowers are supposed to bloom. It's absurd to even think about, but that's what we do as humans to each other.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. My son, when he was up and coming in his industry, which is working with repairing heavy equipment, and he was at this shop, and he calls me up at noon, and he's like, Mom, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, what's going on? And he says, all of my coworkers are telling me to slow down because I make them look bad. And when the foreman comes in, everybody works, but I just work all the time. What do I do? Do I need to slow down and become their friend? What do I do? And I said, Michael, you are a tree, and they are bushes. There is only so far that they will want to grow, but you will outgrow where you are, and someday you will be the foreman, and you will understand what happens when you're not in the room. Well, this year he became a foreman. So it's fine. A bush has a job, Flowers have a job. My tree doesn't look down at my rose bushes and say, what is this pretty little flower shit, right? The tree is like, be you, be your authenticity. And I think that that's my mission is here on earth, is to inspire, to encourage, to empower people to be their authenticity, even if their authenticity doesn't like me. Because maybe I am your cactus. Maybe what I say rubs you the wrong way. That's fine. And don't listen.
You just made me think of one thing. So maybe we'll sort of sum up with this. I'm just going to read it straight from the book.
Please.
You planted 18 stalks of raven grass. Now I'm going into your voice here. I wanted to monitor and record the growth of the grass. So I picked one plant and took pictures of it every week or two to see how fast it would grow in order to compare with where it started. Why not? It was fun. I love that you included that. Why not? It was fun, indeed. At the end of the summer, the stalk that I was monitoring and recording grew to be twice the size of the other ones, and it was the only stalk that plumed. At this point, I realized that the natural world recognizes when it is being observed and may possibly even have an ego. Now, this next line I have highlighted in several different colors and a little star. I have my own, system for note making, but I want it on a t-shirt. Energy flows where consciousness goes. And I think that could maybe be a mantra for us all, no matter what we're doing. Can you just give us a little bit to add, a little subheading for our title of Energy Goes?
Absolutely. I think there's this old saying that, if you've got a headache, you can hit your hand with a hammer and the headache will cease to exist. Right? So, because your energy goes to your hand now, please don't do that. Go get a massage or something, have some tea, lay down. But at the end of the day, if I go shit shopping, I will indeed find shit. If I seek out miracles, I will indeed find miracles. If I think about what is good in the world, it starts emulating from me. If I think about emotional energy, where your emotional energy goes. They say the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, meaning that you might want to get out of a relationship. I say the grass is greener where you water it.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if you're thinking about your consciousness is your essence, and we talk in witchy terms and metaphysical terms and all of this about consciousness. I'm here to say direct your consciousness, because where you direct it, that will grow. If I sit here thinking, about, as you were speaking about your trees, I can see your trees in my mind's eye. I don't know exactly what they look like, but now I'm sitting there with you looking at this tree, which to me is out that side of you, that there's this big tree or something, and I'm just guessing, but it's like my energy flowed with your consciousness and I went there with you. It's beautiful. You can think about that in so many different ways, but yes, energy flows where consciousness goes. And so take your consciousness and put it into a beautiful place. And if you are going through a hard time and you don't have the strength or energy to do magic, I will say, if you wear lipstick or chapstick, get some stickers, put a heart on your chapstick so that in the morning when you put it on, your consciousness will go, may lovely words come out of my mouth. Maybe boil a bunch of eggs, and on the eggs put runes or words like peace, joy, love. And then throughout your week, just go in there and close your eyes and pull out an egg and think about that. And then ingest that energy, right? There are so many different ways. Like when I take a shower, I think to myself, I'm not just cleansing my physical body. Let this pour through my emotional body and clear away all of those residual energies. Let this water flow over my mind and settle my thoughts. Let this purity roll through my spirit. And let me tell you, that shower turns into like a power, deep cleansing. You don't need to go see the Reiki master today because you just did it yourself. Of course, go see the Reiki master, but
also go see the Reiki master.
Yeah. Also, yeah, we need to keep them fed and alive because they give us a great gift. But yeah, so energy goes where consciousness flows. So direct your consciousness, if not only for a moment, and realize that when you are observing the natural world, it is observing back.
Yes. Thank you so much, Granddaughter Crow. Thank you to you and to our listeners for sharing your consciousness, all of us together in this moment, in these voices, the heard and unheard, the seen and unseen. Thank you so much, Granddaughter Crow, for telling stories, for keeping the wisdom of the natural world in our minds and at the forefront as we go seeking our own wisdom, to know that it is out there waiting for us, just waiting to be observed so it can flourish and flow even more.
Yes, that's beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Now, practically, where can our listeners get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you? You said both of your books are on Llewellyn, which is, most of us witches know Llewellyn.
Right. Well, actually, both of my books are on Amazon and Kindle. Llewellyn, I self-published my first book.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so you can get it off of Amazon or Kindle, or maybe even order it from your local bookstore. The Wisdom of the Natural World, which is spiritual and practical teachings from plants, animals, and Mother Earth. You can get that one on Kindle and Amazon, but you can also get it directly from Llewellyn, or you can call your local witchy shop and or your closest Barnes & Noble and just order it straight from them. And if you do want to reach out to me, I would welcome that, even if you just have a comment that you wanted to bring up because maybe in this dialogue together something clicked and you want to share it. Again, energy goes where consciousness flows. If you spread that consciousness, it will even more solidify itself in your story. I'm happy to connect with you guys via email. I think the easiest way to get a hold of me is just www.granddaughtercrow.com. And on there, you can look at what I do. You can look at the different books that I write. I do public speaking, but right now it's more like virtual public speaking, which I enjoy, it being an empath. I don't have to travel through those crazy lines and everything. But you can also, I think I have my phone number on there. You can text me. You can do my email, which is drjoy, drjoy @granddaughtercrow.com.
And once again, thank you for calling yourself Granddaughter instead of any of the other handles that you could have taken, because once again, it reminds us that you are an ancestor, that you are one of a line that goes back.
Yeah. And as old as I may be, I'm not the oldest.
No matter how old I get, there's always going to be somebody older than me. So.
Exactly.
Thank you again so much, Granddaughter Crow.
You're welcome. And so just to kind of wrap it up, now the work has been brought, wicked, worrisome, unwanted, white-swinned way, and now we get to enter our day with this beauty. Our egos can gently come back because we need our egos. They make us shower, so we need our egos. And so they may kind of solidify within you, and I hope that you all let this speak to you and think about your authenticity. Become that. I would love that, because nobody can be this version of you. Be the greatest that you can be.
Yes. If you're a dandelion, let no goldenrod tell you what to do. Thank you again so much, Granddaughter Crow. It's been a Dr. Joy, as always.
I love it.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch.
Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch.
You must be a witch.
Season 6 of the Missing Witches podcast is sponsored in part by Foxglove Farm. Go to Foxglove Farm, that's farm with a PH, like pharmacy.com, and use offer code MISSINGWITCHES when you sign up for your monthly subscription box of witchy delights. And sponsored by listeners like you. You who join our Patreon and come to our coven meetings. You who buy our book. Recommend it to your friends and review it online. We thank you. And if you love this episode, tip us at paypal.me/missingwitches.